We call this slide macroscopic and microscopic concept right away as a continuum of what we were talking about. Macro, micro. Obviously, it's a duality. So everything that we are doing is actually linked. Right? So we had the skill that she has already taught us, and then we went to the duality concept, open our mind, and today's lecture is actually from opening our mind to even expanding it further and further. All right, so next slide, please. Okay, so we're going to see the world. We're seeing the world through lenses. So from macroscopic to microscopic. So to the 10th power. Now we talked about earlier how we can increase the power and see things differently. So we start with 10 to the power 0, which is our existence right now in this world, seeing our events as it is. And then we increase the power, like the way we do the 10 plus 1 module. We'll first travel with positive power, and then we'll go to negative power, means smaller. Positive power means expanding the larger, negative power is smaller. Again, positive, negative, duality concept, okay? First of all, thermodynamics, I'm not going into it, okay? But as we go through the slides, we will see how this concept evolves. Okay, alright, let's go flying. First of all, we see the lead as the way it is, at about a meter. So every lead is what we are familiar with. Next one. Okay, now as we go higher, this is at 30 feet. We see the leaves not by itself now. It's a cluster of a plant. Okay, so that's a different dimension at how we are looking at things. Now duality is only 2 dimensions, right? This or that. Positive, negative. Now I'm going to even break that down further. And we are looking at things from every dimension. So instead of 2 dimensions, we are looking at multi-dimensions with today's lecture. Right, next please. Also adding 1 0. Right, so we are at 100 meters right now by adding 1 more 0. Now we can't even see the cluster of plants. It's just a whole plantation. The buildings, it's not really itself now. We can see more of the whole concept. In a way, we are beginning to see a more holistic type of a concept of the environment, of our circumstances. Next. Now in the individual school is really not there at 10 to the 3rd power, 1 kilometers higher up in the sky. Okay, this is like a plane flying. Next. This is even higher than the plane now. We are more like an airplane kind of jet in space higher up. And the entire city is coming to view. Individual buildings does not mean that much anymore. We're at a totally different dimension. So an airline pilot will see life slightly different from us. Okay? He will be totally schizophrenic if he comes down to Earth and think at this level. But if we were on Earth and think like this level, we thought he's crazy. Okay? Now, a lot of us have traveled on planes, so we know what he's talking about. Just imagine, back in the old days, those guys on Earth would say, "You're crazy." Okay? So because we have different dimension of visualization, we have different dimension of thinking. Next. All right? Now, even a pilot is beginning to have difficulties. Okay. Now, the center of the square is where we begin. The host, where most of the state of Florida is coming to view. Okay? This is more like we see in the Weather Channel. At a totally different dimension. Different type of reality. Next, please. Okay, the whole panhandle is showing up. We are only at 1 kilometers up. So this is what a satellite will see. Right. So astronauts appreciate this because they have been there. Someone who had never watched television in Africa would have no idea what we're talking about. It's a totally different dimension because their thinking box is not as large as the astronaut. Microsoft is breaking this. Next, please. All right. Basically, this is, well, only a few people have actually seen this, right? The astronaut who has gone on the Apollo and been outside, near the moon and something like outer space, they are beginning to see this. Okay, the conventional astronaut that we are familiar with today did not see this picture, obviously, because they're not that far away. It's a totally different concept. The distant stars are more visible, more numerous. Totally different dimension. So it's not just duality, 2 dimensions now. Okay, we have already seen about 6 or 7 dimensions. They're all real. They're all different. But they're all existing. Next, please. All right, at 1 million kilometers. Okay, that number is only 10 to the 9th power. It's not a lot of number, not a huge number. But we can see in reality, it is totally beyond our scope of daily life to understand it. Because our mind is open, our thinking box is larger now after what we had done in the last lecture. We can see it and visualize it even though we had never been there. So all these lectures that we had actually are linked. So this is the orbit of the moon. Next, please. Well, at even higher level, or further level, because there's no high or low, okay? Right? Because it's just basically out in space. And the center of the square is where we were, where we began. Basically, it's insignificant. We can call it infinitesimally small. It was huge when we were down on Earth, but it's nothing. So now we can see, as our thinking box enlarges, how vast it can be. So the orbit of the Earth is beginning to show. That's the blue. Okay, next, please. More orbits are in line. Our mind is larger, thinking box is bigger, and let's keep going. Right. Same concept. More of the orbits are in line, are showing. Let's go higher. We can actually go faster now. Solar system. How many of us, if we were 200 years ago, know about this, or maybe 1,000 years ago, know about this concept of the orbit, of the solar system? We were the center of the universe down on Earth. So as our thinking box enlarges, as our mind expands, we see things totally differently. But this is all real, okay, folks? They all exist at a different dimension. So we are actually, okay, according to this light, at that dimension, 10 to the 13th power. So our reality is like this here, which is totally different from the reality when we were on Earth. And all of it are real. All of them are real. Next, please. So, in the Dark Ages, when scientists first proposed this, they have a glass thinking box. They were put to death for being sacrilege by the smaller thinking boxes. That's how important the thinking box is. Okay? The small thinking box will kill the large thinking box. And actually, we have a lecture later on that devoted to this idea. And we can tell you how this actually can be resolved and how it comes about. So, as we go higher and higher, okay, I use higher just because of directional, okay, inference. So as we go higher and higher, our mind expands, and we look at the solar system, and that is it, which is nothing compared to the vast universe. Totally different dimension, totally different reality, and totally different of existence. So this is beyond our solar system. Okay, all right, same idea, same concept. That's where we begin. It's just like a little star. So someone from outer space look at us, it's no different from we look at them now. Next, please. So all this requires a huge thinking box. Now, notice how we change the unit, okay? It's 1 light year. It's much easier. Does it sound familiar what we are doing? Similar to what we were using with the counting numbers. In fact, in our real life, we are doing it all the time. But light year, we can associate with those two words. Whereas the prana, brahma, we have no idea what it is. So that looks so mysterious. In fact, it is the same concept. Next, please. Oh, sorry. Okay.
Just want to point out that Einstein says space-time is same one thing. This clearly illustrated, right? Space, we're talking about how many kilometers away. Suddenly we switch to time. Light years, okay? So light years is the same as kilometer in space. Space and time is the same thing.
Now, we are at 10 to the 18th power. That's the distance from where we are now at and looking at Earth, okay? So we're seeing not only galaxies, we're seeing stars and nebulas. We're not even seeing our solar system. Next, please. Okay, we're beginning to see the Milky Way. It's way beyond ancient people's imagination. Milky Way was probably the furthest they can see, they can imagine. Okay. Now, with the modern technology, telescopes, we're beginning to see this. And whoever drew this had that concept, had a thinking box big enough to even conceptualize this. Next, please. Now, 10 to the 20th power. Already, it is 10,000 light years. And that 10,000 is getting to be a number that is so huge now we're beginning to have difficulties counting it. We are still in the Milky Way and we'll continue touring it. Next, please. Now we are beginning to leave the Milky Way, 10 to the 21st power. So we are beginning to leave our galaxy. And actually we have left our galaxy into the Milky Way and we are in with other galaxies. Next, please. Okay, other galaxies are showing up. In other words, there's really no beginning, no end. It just kept on going and going. And if we say, gee, well, where does it end? The very question asking that is putting a thinking box on our limit. I mean, placing a limit by putting a thinking box on. So this whole concept that we are doing today is to even breaking that thinking box, expanding it, and expanding it. And we don't know when we can actually stop it, or when we should actually stop it. This is multidimensional thinking. Okay? Every dimension is a reality, folks. Next, please. This is what we know at this stage in our knowledge. 10 to the 23rd power, 10 million light years apart, and that's the span that we know. Is it the end? You can judge for yourself. Okay? So, no point in going on. I think the concept is quite clear.
Again, reiterate that one very crucial statement Dr. Chan made. Every dimension is a reality. Right? We just don't perceive that reality when we're in a different dimension. Right? We fail to perceive realities in other dimensions. We're so focused on our dimension of 10 to the power 0, which is here. And we always forget the reality that exists in other dimensions. The whole purpose of opening up our mind is to allow us to capture this macro view in the same instant. Even though we are living in this one dimension, we are aware of all the realities in all space-time.
So what I'm trying to hope to achieve with this lecture is we broke duality last time. Okay. Which is two-dimension. Hoping to achieve today is with this type of slide, we can start thinking of n plus one dimension. At least we're introducing that concept. So it's a kind of further advancement from duality. Same principle, but expanding it.
It's all based on the number, adding one more zero. That's based on counting number.
All right. So now, that was just one view. Now, it's expanding on the concept that we were just talking about, how Dr. Lowe had said. At 1 meter, which is what we are now. Okay? Reality is the bottom slide, bottom picture. That's reality, right? Okay. Every animal is about the same. Of course, well, this is picture, so it doesn't represent the real size, but we can appreciate the concept. Right? This is how people see things at our level right now, at this reality.
Could you point at the human?
Yeah.
That's the human. Okay.
Yeah.
It's relative dimension, right? If the human is that big, then the kangaroo and elephant is that big and so on.
So,
and the dinosaur is hidden behind it.
So what we are really doing is give you a different way of looking at what we are doing. Okay. Previously, it was just one dimension up, one thing. Now we're looking at multiple things at different level, kind of expanding our horizon in a different way. So instead of this, we are going boom, 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 that way. Next, please. So we can go faster. Okay, this is just a little bit higher, the cluster of leaves, and we have the same diagram at the bottom. The reality is very similar, very close. It's what we can still understand, what we have experienced. Okay, next one. Now we're beginning to see things differently. Where's the human? In the lower picture, nothing. Pyramids, what we at this level are familiar with. Okay, so I'm not sure whether I can be able to explain to you and get you to feel what I'm trying to get at. Right? At 10 to the 0 level, pyramids are huge things. But at 2 zeros higher, Titanic is what we play with, like day-to-day toys. Pyramid is what we kind of see as our usual things that we deal with. Human, they are really like ants. And that's a different level of looking at things, different level of reality, different dimension altogether. And trying to get us into transposing ourselves to a different level and looking at things differently. Kind of a way to get further from duality into a multidimensional, holistic type of thinking. So if you can think at 10 to the 0 level and simultaneously think at 10 to the 2nd level, your mind is going to be what? Very accommodating and very confused. Okay? So you can be very confused and go crazy about it, or you can be totally adapted to it. And that's because of Chi's lecture that we had, the previous lecture on opening our mind. We're not going to go crazy because we know we can think multidimensionally. So that's the purpose of having this second slide, is to break through that conflict. It's an extension of the previous lecture that we had. Alright? At a higher level, what we were previously thinking is big things are kind of, well, Vatican City is just really a tiny thing that we associate with, okay? And if I am functioning at this level, I'll be kind of playing with, what is this, some kind of a ball, and totally different concepts, totally different feelings. Phenomenon looks totally different, but they are existing. And they are what I'm familiar with. Okay, next please. Okay, at 10 to the 5th power. I'm sorry. What is the earth? Right? Like the whole country of Brunei is really just like a toy, or just like what we are usually a cup to us. And that's how God thinks, isn't it? Next, please. At a higher level, 10 to 6th power, if we look down, we see the earth. If we look up, we see different things. We see Pluto. And Pluto is like a ball. It's what we are kind of playing with. We're human. So our mind can do a lot of things. Okay? So 10 to the 7th power, if we look out into space, this is what we see. Look down, we see the Earth. Now again, I use down and up, there's a duality. But in fact, there's no dimension. I mean, all the dimensions are totally different. All the directions doesn't mean that much more once you're into space at this dimension and using this dimensional thinking. Next, please. Okay. Now, same concept. Okay, next, please. Okay. We can actually go faster now. Okay. It's basically the same concept. But once it grabs it, once we see these lights in the future, we can think of things differently. From the way the ant look at us and we look at dinosaurs, dinosaurs look at the universe and the other way around, vice versa. It's a very interesting mind game that we are actually playing. Once we have opened our mind, breaking through the barriers that we put on ourselves, this is a very easy concept to grasp. But it reinforces the fundamentals that we have to learn. And again, this is similar to the first slide, that first lecture that Jenny talked about, holistic. What is holistic? To be able to see things totally differently. Next, please. Okay, so we can just keep going and keep going. Okay, and in this stage now, quite repetitive. The top picture you have seen, the bottom picture is just the addition. And what is really said in there is not that critical. We don't need to remember those names. It's the concept. At different dimensions, different realities, different things actually exist. So this is 10 to the 19th power. Even the bottom picture is beginning to kind of look small and vague. Next one. All right? 10 to the 20th power, the Milky Way. Okay, let's keep going. Keep going. All right. 10 to the 22nd power, again. There should be one more slide. Okay. Beyond 10 to 23rd, okay? Call 10 to the n+1 dimension. That's the observable universe that we are seeing. And what is beyond that? We don't know. It exists. Just because we don't know doesn't mean it's not there. And today we can accept this concept is because our thinking box has already expanded vastly, okay, in the last 2 lectures. Right? Any comment?
So I'm going to put some professions who live at these various dimensions. So how does human live in different realities?
Previously, we are going from 10 to the 0th power to 10 to the 23rd and n+1. So we're going to n-1. Okay, reverse it.
So this will be quantum physicists
that's right.
who study the observable and unobservable universe.
Exactly. So this is the astronomer looking at outer space. Right. So let's go the other way. Yeah. Okay. So we are going on the reverse process. Okay. So we can quickly go through.
So this will be cosmologists who look at deep space exploration, and their tools will be satellites with telescopes that aim at deep space.
Yeah.
Beyond the Milky Way. They are the people who map out all the other galaxies and these sorts. Okay, these are the astronomers who are focused on the solar system. And then we have astronaut, the profession, right?
Yeah.
And this we have a meteorologist, the weatherman every day.
Yes.
Okay. And then these are city planners.
Yeah.
Okay. So Tammy went a little too fast for me. I was going to say, you can look at archaeologists, right? When you look at those other things, and or they might be geographers who look at portions of, right, and so on and so forth. Yeah. No, it's okay. It's good. I think I made my point. As long as I made the point is, we are not. These lecture series are not just hypothetical things. These are real dimensions and reality that human being lives in. But we always forget, right? And we I have a friend who's an astronomer, and we can hardly talk. Right? I don't know what he's talking about. But he is living in one dimension of reality while we are living in a different dimension of reality. But as soon as our mind and heart is open, we can share and appreciate and interact and communicate, and we can do the speed learning, and we can understand everything he's talking about, and we can capture a whole lot of information because the human mind can do that.
Okay, we have seen all these before, right? So now we look inward. Okay, by inward, we're looking at smaller and smaller scale. In other words, when we are looking at a smaller scale, things are enlarging.
So I'm a botanist now.
Yeah.
Right? A while ago I was a gardener.
Yeah.
Right.
And now?
Now I may be a plant pathologist.
Yes. Right. Cellular level now. So we are looking at smaller dimension, and things are looking bigger and bigger.
So now I'm a zoologist or an anatomist.
Yeah. So this is what the anatomists look at, and if he functions at this level and talk to us, we have no clue what he's talking about, because we are basically at different dimensions, and we have different reality, and that would create conflict. And that's what we need to expand on, from just duality to multidimensional thinking. Okay.
So now I'm a plant physiologist. Those are called stomatras on the surface. They are breathing apparatus of the plant leaf that exchange oxygen, carbon dioxide, and moisture. They're like the mouth on the leaves. They open and shut and regulate. So I'm a plant physiologist.
Yeah, we changed the unit to micron to make our life easier. Same as the counting unit. We're doing that again in our daily life as well.
I'm now a plant geneticist. I'm start looking at the nucleus.
10 to the minus 7 level, we changed the unit to angstrom.
So from a geneticist, I'm now becoming a molecular biologist.
Yeah, DNA now. Just imagine, 100 years ago, we'll think we are processed by demons. Talk to me about this type of helical structure. Smaller now, 10 to the minus 9 power. A lot smaller.
So now I'm a biochemist because I'm looking at the chemistry that makes up those molecules.
Whoa, we're looking at electron clouds.
So from a chemist, I become a physicist.
Atomic nucleus, we change the unit again. Make it easier for us to relate to each other.
So those are electrons orbiting around the nucleus, which is of protons and neutrons, as depicted by the red and the white balls.
We're using picometer now. Space is getting vast. The individual is getting smaller. So what we're doing is basically stretching our brain, stretching our thinking box. Okay? We're going further and further. We're using smaller units and making it easier. Same concept that we have developed. We're just putting into real life and something that we're familiar with.
So now I'm an atomic physicist, building atom bombs, hydrogen bombs.
So we're seeing a carbon atom, according to here. Just a third. So we are 10 to the 15th power is really talking about what? Quantum?
Yeah. So now, you know what? I'm a quantum physicist again. I'm studying subatomic particles and what makes up those subatomic particles. So if I go to the outer edge of the cosmos, I'm a quantum physicist. If I go down to the tiniest of tiny, I'm a quantum physicist again.
Okay. Now, this is called learning and thinking. We're talking about quant. This is not real things that at our level right now that we can associate with. But our mind can learn it. We can think about it. And that's because, according to that last sentence, this is at the boundary of our physical universe. The boundary is what we put on it. It's not the end. So now beyond, well, infinitesimal instead of infinity, okay? The other way around. Getting smaller, we call it infinitesimal. That's really where we are. Okay, the Planck's constant at 10 to the 35th power is the smallest unit that we know right now. That's our limit, our scientific limit right now. So, philosophically, conceptually, is it the smallest? Again, I leave it for you to decide.
The Planck's link, the name Planck, is from a German scientist. His name is Maximilian Planck, or just Max Planck, and he won the Nobel Prize, and he is the grandfather of quantum physics. So there we're looking at a quantum form, which is the fabric of the universe. What is the fabric of the universe? On the right hand side we have the string, which is a string theory, that everything is actually a vibration. Vibration of what? They ask. Well, vibration of, well, think of a string. And because they are vibrating at the different frequencies, they're making up all these different particles that we perceive as electron, proton, neutron. And as these electron, proton, neutrons interact with another energy field called a Higgs field, they either speed up or slow down because of the interaction with this Higgs field, and it gives them this apparent weight. So we went from weightless to weight. We went from nothingness to somethingness. We went from energy to mass. We went from nothing to something, which is the process of creation, which is the process of Tathagata, the transference from metaphysics to physics. Something was created. That's why the Higgs field, when they found the Higgs boson last year, about 6 months ago, it was referred to as the God particle. Right? Particle of creation. It's not from nothing it becomes something. It's now that used to be philosophical in the metaphysical realm is now pure physics. So as science progresses, we push the limit of metaphysics. Once it's understood and once it's proven scientifically, then it becomes physics. It becomes physical, like the Higgs boson or the Higgs field.
So same idea. I think we can go through it very fastly.
Okay, I want to give professions too. I want you to get a feeling that we can be everything. There's reality, and that reality can be many different humans and can be the same human, okay? So here I'm a human being, okay? The speech balls and so on. So now here I study small animals, shrews, hummingbird, and glass marble, coffee bean, an ant. So I might be an entomologist, studying little insects, okay? Now what are those things? Oh, largest bacteria. Okay, keep going. Yeah, I'm a biologist. I study human eggs. So yeah, I may be,
Physiology?
Microdroplets, nucleus, white blood cells. Oh, I'm definitely a physiologist. Ultraviolet light and some virus, right? Okay, I think I'm beginning to be a microbiologist. Oh yeah, now we're going into the virus. So from the microbiologist, from the bacteriologist, I study bacteria. See that thing on the upper left-hand corner? That's an E. coli. Remember Walkerton disaster when, we drink water and we got this bacteria poisoning? That's E. coli. I'm a bacteriologist. Okay? Or from the microbiologist, I'm a bacteriologist. Look at the violet light. Okay? This is violet. Okay? And there are some viruses there. Does it count? Now I'm looking at the AIDS virus, the HIV. I'm now, from a bacteriologist, I become a virologist. And I'm looking at ultraviolet light. And now I'm looking at DNA, again a molecular biologist. And that's a lipid membrane. It's the structure of the membrane, the cell membrane. And this one. Oh, on the left-hand side is the structure of the cell membrane magnified. So now I become an organic chemist. Alpha helix, yeah, that's the DNA thingy, and carbon nanotube is the upcoming science here. It's like X-ray. For light, I'm looking at X-ray now. I'm like an X-ray technician. That's a glucose molecule. People, who like sweets in their coffee or diabetic or to take medication. Next one. So carbon atom, right? Now I'm definitely a chemist. And I'm a physicist now. Oh, look, uranium. I'm a nuclear physicist, right? Now, we think uranium is a very heavy thing. It's actually small, okay? It's smaller than the other carbon atom, right? And yet it has so much mass packed together, and it's actually smaller than the carbon or the oxygen. That's why when nuclear fission gives so much energy. And that's an electron. Look, the yellow guy is an electron. And look at the uranium. Not that much bigger than the electron. It's fascinating, okay? So, these fascinating things with physics. I hate physics. No, there's nothing to do with my life. No, we need to. Every time we turn on the light, we use nuclear power plant. Uranium there, okay? And the light comes on the electron through the wires to us. Neutron, proton. Okay. Yeah, physics. Okay. All right, so I think I made my point again. Every dimension there's a reality, and every reality there's a profession. And we can be multiple. So that's what between a closed mind and an open mind.
Okay, so think about it. Are we the center of the universe? Where is the center of the universe? Are we a special creature amongst the millions of other creations in the world? What exists outside of our boundary? More important question, is there any boundary? Let's think about it. So we go down, which is directional. Okay. We can go as small as 10 to the 16. That's the limit of our science right now. We go higher, up, 10 to the 23rd power. But our imagination, with our thinking box, can go beyond. So philosophical question is the last line. So are we living alone? In our dimensions, yes. We think about other dimensions, if we transpose ourselves and think in a different dimension, I think the answer is obvious.
Okay, so that's the end of the lecture.
Okay. So, in summary, what this lecture, my part, was to expand on what we had talked about in the previous lecture. We use the speed learning process to break through duality. Instead of two dimensions or two ways of looking at things, this particular lecture just introduced multi-dimension. So we vastly expand our horizon. And ultimately, I think we all know, to reinforce the thinking box concept. Where's the thinking box? Now, then, well, probably Tom asked a very good question last time. What do we do with this? Right? That's basically what he asked. What's the big deal of knowing all this? Well, yeah, I think it's pretty obvious right now. We ask some really deep philosophical question. Are we the only one? That's life. So, if we look at wholesome concept, which Jen tried to develop, why are we arguing with each other? And technical things, right? You're right, I'm right, the N is right, everybody has entitled to something. That should change our life. That's how I was going to answer Tom today. He's not here, right? That's unfortunate, right? What do you do with your life? You know how to deal with it, okay? There's all these concepts here, apply it.
So it's the big picture. We try to present what big picture means, what the AW curriculum means to lead you to that yellow brick road, the path to enlightenment.